I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and today we are going to talk about the jury coming back with a verdict and then also the sentencing of Alec Murdaugh. And I'm going to give my commentary about some things I observed along the way, and these are my opinions. I cannot diagnose. Let's roll the intro. So I was so surprised last night when I got an email alert from Emily D. Baker. I signed up for her Law Nerd alert, and I got an email that said that the jury was back. A verdict is in. And immediately I thought, ooh, they likely found him guilty. Because anytime a verdict comes back that fast, it was either going to be guilty or not guilty. Normally, if they can't agree, that's a longer process, but they all 12 agreed that Alec was guilty. And I watched the GMA interview of one of the jurors where the thing that really sealed it for him was the Snapchat video on Paul's phone. That video where you can hear Alec say, "Oh, Bubba." And that was the thing. Because if somebody was innocent, why would they lie about the last time they saw their family? And it's pretty clear that something happened soon after that, because Paul was an avid phone user, like, and I am too. I am always on my phone. My phone is right here. If there's no activity on my phone, like we all know that was the thing that did it for him. So last night I got on, I watched, and I was surprised that there was no real reaction. Alec's face was pretty neutral and there wasn't really much emotion. There's a part of me that thinks that he knew. He knew that this was going to be the verdict, that he was likely found guilty, the fact that it came back so fast. And then the other side of it is, does he just not show emotions the way some other people do? Because the juror that talked, he also mentioned that when Alec was showing emotions, that he saw snot but no tears. And I think I even put in my video where I talked about just some observations that I had, that he seemed to be able to turn his emotions on and off rather quickly. And the jury might have felt as though he was trying to manipulate them, that he was using the emotion as a way to prove his point or get them on his side. And because the juror specifically mentioned that he didn't sense any remorse. Well, then today, the judge gave him a lecture, and let's watch a few clips from that. And I will link the full video from Law and Crime down in the description.
It's also particularly troubling, Mr. Murdaugh, because as a member of the legal community and a well-known member of the legal community, you've practiced law before me, and we've seen each other at various occasions throughout the years. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. And you've engaged in such duplicitous conduct.
I was not expecting the judge to go here to talk about some of his observations during court.
Here in the courtroom, here on the witness stand, and as established by the testimony throughout the time leading from the time of the indictment and prior to the indictment throughout the trial to this moment in time. Certainly, you have no obligation to say anything other than saying not guilty. And obviously, as appeals are probably expected or absolutely expected,
They're definitely going to appeal.
I would not expect a confession of any kind.
I want to skip ahead to where he talks about the lies.
Decision of the state not to pursue the death penalty. But as I sit here in this courtroom and look around the many portraits of judges and other court officials and reflect on the fact that over the past century, your family, including you, have been prosecuting people here in this courtroom, and many have received the death penalty, probably for lesser conduct. Remind me of the expression you gave on the witness stand. Was it tangled?
Tangled web, we weave.
Oh, what tangled web we weave. What did you mean by that?
Meant when I lied, I continue to lie.
And the question is, when will it end? When will it end? And it's ended already for the jury because they've concluded that you continued to lie and lied throughout your testimony. And perhaps with all the throng of people here, they, for the most part, all believe, or 80, 90%, 99% believe that you continue to lie now when your statement of denial to the court. Perhaps you believe that it does not matter, that there's nothing that can mitigate a sentence given the crimes that were committed. You know, a notice of alibi was filed in this case by counsel in November, and we conducted a hearing, pretrial hearing, in which you claimed to have been someplace else at the time the crime was committed. Then, after all of the witnesses placed you at the scene of the crime, at the last minute, or last minutes or days, you switch courses and admitted to being there. And then that necessitated more lies and continued to lie. And I said, where will it end? It's already ended for many who have heard you and concluded that it'll never end.
And so the judge goes on to talk more about just his perception of Alec and everything from the trial.
And to go from that to this, you know, your license to practice law has been stripped away from you. You turned from lawyer to witness, and now have an opportunity to make your final appeal as an ex-lawyer. And it's almost, it's really surprising that you're waiving this right at this time.
And I think the judge was wanting him to say more. And let's see what he does.
And if you opt to do so, it's on you. You're not compelled to say anything, but you have the opportunity to do so.
I started to record this earlier and I had an issue and it wasn't recording. And I forgot to mention in this one that none of the victims decided to come forward and say anything. And because normally at a sentencing, the victims get to come forward and they talk about how the crime impacted them. And possibly because so many of them have already taken the stand. And sometimes there's even people that can come on behalf of the defendant as well that can speak to their character or they can speak for them. But there was nothing that was presented to talk about that today.
And I tell you again, I respect this court, but I'm innocent. I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my wife, Maggie.
Look at the bailiff behind him. Look at him shake his head.
And I would never, under any circumstances, hurt my son, Pawpaw.
Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been.
It's interesting that the judge goes here. Let's watch.
The monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another person. I've seen that before.
And it's interesting that they brought that up because they talked about when Paul was under the influence that Timmy would come out. Now, nothing has been said related to Alec like that, but the judge bringing up, hey, maybe the person standing in front of me today, but that maybe there's this other side that comes out when you're under the influence.
Yeah, the person standing before me was not the person who committed the crime, though it's the same individual. We'll leave that at that. Before announcing sentence on these cases, with regard to all of the other pending cases,
99 pending cases. And I really do wonder if they're going to try to come to some agreement on those, but let's watch.
are any of them here in Colleton, or I'm sure some of them are?
Yes, sir.
Half of them are
I'll skip this part.
integrity of the judicial system in our state, law enforcement in our state. Even during this trial, the law enforcement has been maligned for the past 5 or 6 weeks by one who had access to the wheels of justice to be able to deflect the investigation.
And I wonder if this is in response to him carrying he had his badge, and because they said he used to carry 2 badges around. There was testimony that he would keep it up on his dashboard. And he admitted on the stand to doing that to try if he was pulled over or that to try to get preferential treatment at times. There was also a picture shown during his cross-examination when he was on the stand after the Mallory Beach boat accident, him at the hospital with it hanging out of his back pocket. That it's interesting that the judge went here, but I'm not surprised.
And as the evidence has pointed out in this case, the looming storm that Mr. Waters talked about, I can just imagine on that day, June 7th, when a lawyer is confronted and confesses to having stolen over $500,000 from a client. And he has a tiger like Mark Tinsley on his tail pursuing discovery in the case involving the death of Mallory Beach. And having a father, for the most part, on his deathbed. I could imagine, I really can't imagine, but I know it had to.
I think this is the judge trying to show some empathy and trying to show like, hey, like this, trying to put himself in his shoes, but trying to say like, that would have been a difficult place to be. And yet.
There's been quite a bit going through your mind on that day. But amazingly, to have you come and testify that it was just another ordinary day,
I don't have days like that.
that my wife and son and I were out just enjoying life. Not credible, not believable. You can convince yourself about it, but obviously you have the inability.
And somebody that is used to hiding the truth, somebody that has been getting away with this for years and years, it just seems like there was a plan in motion. I think some of the things that really, some of the testimony that hurt Alec was, of course, the Snapchat video. I think the housekeeper coming forward and her testimony about things just being off, and just the conversation that she had with Miss Maggie before, her realizing that maybe he's not telling me everything, and what was maybe coming after that. And the fact that, even though, like, the fact that, did she hire a forensic accountant, did she talk to a divorce attorney, to my knowledge none of those things came in. And like I said, I haven't watched every single moment, but those things did not come into the trial. I have watched the HBO special and the Netflix special, and there are a few other things that I've watched, because just trying to make it make sense. And even now, having seen the things that I've seen, it is still really hard. Let's keep going.
To convince anyone else about that. So if you made any such arguments as a lawyer, you would lose every case that, like that. Cases you will never have an opportunity to argue anymore, except perhaps your own as you sit in the Department of Corrections. Anything further?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Murdaugh, I sentence you to the State Department of Corrections on each of the murder indictments in the murder of your wife, Maggie Murdaugh. I sentence you for the term of the rest of your natural life for the murder of Paul Murdaugh, whom you probably love so much. I sentence you to prison for murdering him for the rest of your natural life. Those sentences will run consecutive. Under the statute involving possession of a weapon during a violent crime, there is no sentence where a life sentence is imposed on other indictments. That is the sentence of the court, and you are remanded to the State Department of Corrections.
And they take him off, and that's that.
And officers may carry forth.
So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if there are any things that you would like for me to continue to talk about or cover, or any other cases. The other cases that I'm keeping an eye on is if a forensic psychologist is brought on for the Lori Vallow case, and then also for I believe it's Utah, if there is any forensic psychologist that comes on. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I enjoy looking at it from the clinical side, and I like looking at things from the forensic side. But watching the expert testimony, that is something that really interests me. And this case is sad. This verdict does not bring anyone back. And I just hope that the families find, because it's going to be a journey. This loss is traumatic, especially for Buster. He's lost his father, his mother, his brother, and just hoping that people figure out how to press forward. I will be doing some videos on traumatic grief and also dealing with toxic family. So, and if you have things you'd like for me to cover, let me know. Feel free to connect with me on my other social media. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.